Hey, everybody, this is Negri. Welcome to the witching hour. Yes, that hour of the day when the veil is thin and magic happens. I have some good, spooky, pretty amazing magic for us today. You might know him from TikTok or YouTube or all sorts of social media, but I have paranormal investigator and all around great guy, Kalani the Ghost Hunter. Thank you so much, Kalani.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I am so happy to have you on and finally meet you. This is the first time I've met, though I know we've crossed paths many times with some of the people that we work with.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know much about you, how did you get into this goofy paranormal world?
So I have been investigating for about 4 years, but I started making content about 2.5 years ago, and it kind of led to one thing led to another, and then all of a sudden this is the full-time job, and now I travel the world going to places that people don't want to go to.
Yeah, or some of us do, or
Some
people
of
are
us,
they want to watch you go there, or
that's it. That's it. They want to sit
um,
at home and watch me go do it.
yeah, I just watched one when you were actually with a friend of mine that we both work with, Josh the Explorer, exploring with Josh, and you were with Robert the Doll, which I have one of those mini Robert the Dolls. And me, as an experienced practicing witch, you did something that I would never ever do. You blooded things. How'd that go
Yeah.
for you?
Well, if you watch that video, you could see that it did not go as well as we had hoped, but I will say it was a learning experience to say the least. I've never had anything like that in all the places I've ever been, but that's also the only time I've ever stuck a needle in my finger and bled on a Robert the Doll. So it was kind of like I got what I was asking for, but me being stubborn, I live through mistakes rather than live through somebody else's.
I like that. No, it is great because I know David, that one of the keepers, and the guy on the video, I can't remember his name, but I met him at a recent Paracon and he's great. So yes, I am very all about Robert the Doll. I have his rum just in case it gets too much for me. I have the doll, but I would never blood him there. What are some of the other really great or really bad experiences that you've experienced in your ability to go around the world do this?
Yeah, so recently I went to the Nevada State Prison and they let me inside of the death chamber and I got strapped to the execution table, which that was a really cool experience because they don't let many people do that. I think the only other people that have been in that room would be Project Fear now. But I was the first person that wasn't getting executed to get kind of strapped to the wrist strap of that table. So that was a very interesting experience. And there's actually a part of that where I feel like an overwhelming sense of anger, like something that I've never had happen before, where something's made me feel angry, which part of me was like, maybe it's the lack of oxygen in there. But the other part of me was, maybe there's something that has an influence over my demeanor in that space. So that was a really cool experience in that place. There was so much activity. We didn't even have to have equipment out. It was one of those locations that you could walk in there with a flashlight and have an experience. So that's probably one of my top ones this year. But and then you move to Robert the Doll, and it's just a compounding sequence of crazy after crazy.
Yeah, no, I've done the Nevada State Prison somewhere this year too with the overnight guys with Elton and Corey, and not strapped down to the you just go that next level, Kalani. I like that. Yeah, tie me up. So you've probably been there already by the time this airs because it is our Halloween issue and our episode. And the veil is thinner. And as we get into October, the further we get, the more and more activity you're going to get, the more and more that is what Halloween is. Or in my witchy pagan background, it's Samhain when the
Mm-hmm.
veil is thin. So you're getting ready to go do your first investigation at the Queen Mary, right?
Yep. So tomorrow we'll be heading to stay the night at the Queen Mary, and I'm excited because I've heard stories, I've watched shows over the years, and I finally get to go experience it for myself.
Yeah, it's great. That's actually where I grew up. So my high school prom was on the Queen Mary. And at my high
Wow.
school prom, literally, I snuck away because that's what we do. And I got to the pool area, the empty indoor pool area, and I saw the little girl. I'm talking decades ago. And I'm like, that's what I did at my prom. It's so funny because it's this goofy place with happy ghosts, dark ghosts, and then there's weddings and proms in between everything. It's got such a juxtaposition going back, and it's so big.
I'm excited to go. And I think what's weird is like kind of what you mentioned, you have on one hand, people making videos about how scary this place can be, and then on the other hand, you've got somebody having their wedding there. So it's like a lot of energy in that boat, and it sits on water, which, depending on how you feel about that, right, that could just be a conduit in and of itself.
Total conduit. In my experience, total conduit. And all the history of that ship, everything it's gone through, from being a luxury liner to being a warship, and so many people killed in the war stuff. It'll vibrate. You'll feel it the second you get there. You will feel
Yeah, I'm excited for sure.
So while you were here in LA, are you going to the Cecil? Have you been to the Cecil?
I've never been to the Cecil. I'd love to go to the Cecil. I might have to even if I can just meander my way to the outside, I think that might just give me enough of a tickle to make me come back. But just so many stories, because I'm a criminal justice bachelor's. So my 400 level coursework was a lot on serial killers. So obviously Richard Ramirez in the history in this area. It's not to mention you got Manson and the other folks. This area's got so much history, which good and bad history, but the fact that you can still kind of go to these places where these things happen is still pretty remarkable.
Yeah, no, that is truly actually the darkest place I have ever been. The most that I have been affected with depression and I want to kill myself. I've been there probably I've been there with Ghost Adventures. I've been there with Corey and Eldon. I've been there with some CW show. And it's just, the closer you get, I'm so depressed. I'm so hopeless. And sadly, they're moving in homeless people right now. Great concept, 700 empty rooms, bad. They're already jumping out windows. From the day one, ambulances are pulling up. You will feel it. You're really intuitive. I could tell you are really intuitive. So you wouldn't even be in this business if you weren't. I mean, these are the people drawn to it. I would go there. Don't tell anybody. This is a really big secret, but I have bribed my way in for as little as $100. Depends on who the guard is.
Okay. So I'll keep that in mind.
Anybody, this is private.
Well, maybe the next time I come back, I'll have to get you to show me the ropes to go to the Cecil.
Okay, that would be great. I would be happy to. So what is on your bucket list as far as, is there a place that you're, I'm going to say dying to get to? We can't say that in our business. That you're looking forward to going to that you haven't been to yet?
So next year, I want to do a lot more international stuff because I've done a lot of the bucket list locations I had in the U.S. I mean, there's still a few there, but international, that's where the history, when you start looking at the research, you're like, okay, the U.S., we think 1700s is old. And then you get overseas and it's like in the year 200, this is what happened. And you're just like, it kind of takes you back for a second because you're like, wow, like thousands of more years of history here. So one that I want to do next year is the killing fields in Cambodia. Wow. And then this one's a little out there, but again, if you know my background from education, it kind of makes sense. But Jonestown in Guyana, South America, that's one that no one's ever really gotten to touch. And I've looked at it. It would take a lot of money to pull that one off, but I think there's a lot of souls there that would be willing to communicate.
That we're really pissed off what happened. Yeah. Oh, I have a thing. I mean, I'm by cults and cult leaders and things like that. So yeah, I hope you get there. Especially, I love that you have a criminal justice background on that. Was that what you were planning to do when you grew up, go into that work, and you ended up here?
Yeah. So I was planning, I got that degree with the anticipation of going to law school after to become an attorney, but I ended up going the political side, and then I became a legislative assistant for a House of Representatives member. And I was still always doing like paranormal stuff on the side, but obviously at that point it was just a hobby. And then my wife told me to make videos when one of our visits in Texas at a haunted hotel. And then the videos started doing well. And then I quit and went for it full time. And here we are.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. And you can always do the other if you so want, or combine them somehow. You could be
no. This is way more fun. This is way more fun. That is dead and gone at this point.
I know, because I came into this kicking. I wanted to do everything else. I actually ran a regular production company, live shows. I've done this, I've done that, but this is way more fun.
For sure.
And you're right about the old. When I go back east, it's older because I'm West Coast girl, and to us, old is 100 years old. So the oldest things we have are the mining towns. Well, so you go to Virginia City and you go to Vulture City and you go to Nevada City or you go to Butte and all these places. But getting back east, they do have 1700. But yeah, you will find when over the pond and beyond, it's kind of crazy and cool.
For sure.
Speak English. Some of them do, but like they're trying to speak English, but there's such brogue to it. I don't know. So you again, you go out there, you jump all in of like blooding at Robert the Doll and stay with Robert the Doll. Do you have any specific protection techniques? Do you work within a belief system, or is there anything that you do, or you just go for it?
So I have a religious background, but I don't do any kind of like protection. Like I've never had a cleansing done. I've never had any kind of protection. I just go for it. And which I'm Native Hawaiian. So I've had some people tell me that is working in my favor due to the spirituality of the indigenous folks of Hawaii. But yeah, I just go for it. So I don't like when we did the Robert the Doll video, Josh was the only one that had a cleansing, right? He had holy water and Florida water. But even then I was just like, I'm good. But then we left and Josh is the one that had all the bad luck. So I'm counting that one as a win, at least. That's knock on wood so far.
Yeah, the Hawaiian world is. Have you done any investigations there?
So I've done little, but something that I'm setting up right now is doing a lot of the places that are more indigenous spots, like spirituality spots. So that's something that I am leaning more towards doing here very soon in the next couple months, because I want to bring attention to that culture, as well as I think it would just be a really phenomenal experience, because the moment you step into the Hawaiian Islands, it's just a completely different energy.
Completely different energy. And that's what I was going to say, because and again, in non-native person, we have to be very careful. We do have to be very careful. I've felt it. I do everything with respect anyway, but you go in, it's like, okay, I'm an outsider here and I have to go in carefully to some of the sacred spots and things.
For sure. Yeah. So it's like from that standpoint, I have the comfortability of knowing this is people that I come from, that I'm speaking to. So for me, it's more of just telling that story, and I don't have to worry as much about the other issues that can come from that.
That's great. So you haven't had, with you not doing any protection or cleansings or clearings of any sort, you haven't brought anything home with you?
Nothing to my knowledge. If they do follow me home, which I invite stuff to follow me too. I'm like, if you want to tag along and go to some more spooky spots, you can just hop on the train, because we'll be somewhere new every week. So maybe I've transported something in that way, but I've never had anything go home with me, nor do I give it instruction not to go home. I just have never had any experiences at home, but I never pull out equipment at home either. So I feel like if I'm looking for activity at home, I may be more susceptible of finding it if I was investigating. But when I go home, I'm just chilling.
That's good. Yeah, you got to kind of keep your home, especially when you do what we do, kind of sacred and separate. But I think it probably is your attitude. I firmly believe, since I was like 5 years old, that this is our realm of existence. They really do have to play by our rules, and they can only really have power overtake us if we allow them to. I will allow them to. I'm a medium. I will channel, but when I don't want it, it's like, no. And I think you have a strong enough of spirit, your human spirit of who you are, and you know that they're not going to hurt you or can't hurt you, so they're not.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of just give everybody the respect in whatever they believe gives them their sanity and their protection, right? Because so many people come from different spiritualities and religious backgrounds, right? And I've come to the conclusion with a lot that it's what you put your power in, right? So if these people put their power in specific things, it's my duty or my job to tell them that's not real, because to them it is. So, that's something that I've been very cognizant of, is letting people believe what they believe and letting them do what they do, because that's what gives them their protection.
Right. I am 100% with you, because there are many truths. There's many ways from my house to your house. Who's to say one is better than the other? Actually, I started a school where I have like 20 teachers, all of different belief systems. You're right, and you're right, and you're right, and you're right, and we're all right. What do you think people, again, a lot of people listening are my witchy folks or my spirituality folk, don't know as much about paranormal investigating, but it's getting bigger and bigger all the time. It's not going away. It's not fading away. I think with the veil thinning and more paranormal or unexplainable to the old-fashioned world happening, it's not going away, and people are scared, so they want to know there's something more. What do you, if somebody wants to, okay, I want to get involved in this, do you have any suggestions for what they should, or more importantly, shouldn't do?
Well, so, I tell people all the time, the first step with whatever you're interested in is always the hardest one, right? It's always the hardest to take that initial step or that initial leap. So, like, I think if you're going to places with historical value, with the intent of trying to communicate with something, that's the easiest first step you can take, right? You don't even have to have equipment at that point, because you can always have an experience without ever having a piece of equipment. But if you're somebody that wants to use equipment, right, you have a cell phone that can serve as a voice recorder that's sitting in your pocket. So between a camera on your phone and the voice recorder, that is a way that you could literally start today sitting where you're at and start becoming an investigator. And at the end of the day, no one can really tell you kind of you're right or wrong, because this field's all a theoretical approach. So as long as you can kind of justify what you believe, then, you can kind of go about it the way that you see fit. In terms of things not to do, it really just depends on who you talk to. For me, I'm probably not a good person to ask what not to do, as you can see through my track record.
Yeah.
But I'm somebody, like I said, I learned through experience, whether it's good or bad. But for some folks out there that may be more open or maybe more susceptible for having bad things happen, it probably would not be a good recommendation to, stick a needle in your thumb and bleed on objects, or really try and, I don't provoke all the time, but I do find that in certain scenarios, provocation's a tool to communicate. Because, like, when you go to prisons, for example, most of those people were there was a communication style that has to be matched. And if you're coming at them like, can you come say hello? Like, you rarely get a response. But if you kind of push the agenda a little bit, then you usually tend to get better stuff. But I would just say know your boundaries and know what you're comfortable with when you start. And that's going to be a big determining factor on what you will not do. Because there's a lot of people, right, that won't touch Ouija boards, or there's certain methods that they won't touch, which that's their personal boundaries. That's cool. Obviously, for me, I'll do anything. But it really just comes down to personally what you feel your limits are and how far you want to kind of jump down the potential rabbit hole.
Good. I agree wholeheartedly. And yeah, I've been using Ouija boards safely since I was 7 or 8 years old. But if I'm, say, doing a seance and even there's one person at the table that gets freaked out by it, we don't need it anyway. I won't use it, because you don't need to bring that kind of fear factor. That just not going to help the whole situation. So that's.
Yeah. And 10 is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. It's huge. So what is the funny? Have you had anything like really funny or unexpected that has happened to you, since this now is your full-time job and what you do? What's the funniest or most unexpected?
I've had some funny stuff. I've had some really funny EVPs. So for anyone out there that's listening that doesn't know what an EVP is, electronic voice phenomenon, or essentially something that's coming through on a recorder that your ears aren't naturally picking up. So I was at the Madison Seminary in Ohio about 2 weeks ago. And when I get tired, that's when the live streams really take a turn, because I have a very sick and twisted personality and humor, and that kind of comes out more the more I get tired, because the filters kind of come down. And I started asking some interesting questions and asking them in a unique way to try and see if I could make something laugh or make something kind of react in the environment. And we hear a laugh, and then something I took from Adam Kimmel. He always asks, if there's anything here, can you say the word banana? Which that's one that I've used since I've kind of met Adam. But once you hear it come through on a recorder and you hear banana, it's like there's nothing that sounds close.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
So we had it come through and the spirit was laughing. Like, that was a recent one where I actually kind of chuckled, because, how many times do people come in asking the same question over and over again, and then all of a sudden you're in here asking something stupid, but they may find humor in that, and it seems like they did, and they laughed and ended up responding to other questions after that point.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think there needs to be more humor in paranormal investigation, because I'm sure that the spirits, especially like what I think sometimes are almost overused locations, it's like, is that ghost abuse? I'm not sure. Can you guys give them a week? But coming in with something funny. I love that banana. I might have to steal that from you, who stole it from someone. They want more than, when did I? When did,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I had 1,000 people ask me what my name was and how did I die or when I died, I probably wouldn't talk anymore.
Right. It's like, and then go say banana. Why? Okay, banana.
Or like, yeah, so I dressed up. I had a banana costume.
Yeah.
I put a banana costume on at College Hill Hospital, and I climbed into the body locker with the banana costume on, and then did an EVP session, and we actually had some responses with that. So like, I think a lot of people think the paranormal all has to be like fear-based, which sometimes it can be adrenaline pumping, but sometimes it can be kind of lighthearted and fun. It really just depends on what you're trying to do. If your objective is to make scary content, and obviously it's all fear-based, but if your objective is to get the maximum potential for communication, humor is a big part in it.
Right. I agree. And I love happy ghosts. I mean, I think big in life, big in death. I say over and over again, you're the little quiet, real person in life. You're a little quiet ghost. Big personalities are big personalities in death. So whether that's the prison dudes or the miners, or you're at the Hollywood Roosevelt with this, deceased celebrities hanging from the chandelier, they're big personality, and you're going to get a lot. And it doesn't have to be fear-based. It could be fun and sexy and magical and all sorts of things.
For sure.
Yeah. What is your weirdest? I don't know why I'm focused on hotels for some reason, but what is your weirdest hotel experience? Spirit just told me to ask you that, so you must have something.
So, have you ever heard of the Grand Midway Hotel
No.
in Windber, Pennsylvania? So the guy that owns it, his name is Blair. But on top of this hotel, he has painted the world's largest Ouija board. So it's got the Guinness Book of World Records, world's largest Ouija board, sits on top of this hotel. And all of the items he has in there, like he's got so many unique pieces that come from so many places. Like he's got a taxidermy monkey, and he's got just dolls that people have donated. And the history of that place alone is very unique because it used to be a brothel. And on 4th of July, one year, one of the workers in the brothel had a firework go into her jugular, and that was, she kind of bled out over the town. But this crazy history. But this hotel, I don't know if it's because he's combined so many different entities or attachments, but you walk in there and it's one of the weirdest places in terms of energy. Like you could go up to the top floor and you'll feel something, and then one room over or one floor down, it's a completely different feeling. So people are very energy receptive. That's one place that if you've never been, it's worth the night stay, because sometimes it'll be a quiet night, but sometimes you'll hear something walking right outside your door and you're the only one in the building.
Yay. Okay, I will remember that. That is cool.
Yeah, it's a trip. It's a crazy place.
What is like, have you had a really bad experience that I don't want to go back there? Whether it's just, did there nothing really good happened and you were hoping, or again, it was so bad that you didn't like it?
I've never had anything like scare me to the point where I'd never want to return, or bad enough that I'd never want to return, because again, I kind of know that when you start, trying to piss something off, if something reacts that way, you're literally asking for it. So they're just giving you what you're putting out. So for me, like I've been to a lot, like Bobby Mackey's was one that I was really surprised of, because I've been there multiple times and just very little activity. Not to say that things haven't happened there, but just for me personally, I didn't have much activity, whether that would be like I threw a gummy worm in the portal to hell and ate it, and just to say, which I would never do it again because people like bleed into that hole and spit. I'd never do it again, but I did it once. I've just never had much activity. And I think kind of what you mentioned earlier, where there's almost like so much investigating going on that it kind of just sucks the energy out of these places. Cause like I've been to Waverly Hills before, and I've been multiple times, but sometimes I go and it's just completely quiet. And sometimes I go, and if I'm by myself or just me and my wife, then it's really active. So I think a lot of the big box stores, as I call them, it's very hard for those entities because there's so many people coming in with the intent to communicate. Like there's no way they'd have enough energy to actively do that with everyone that comes in. So I found that a lot of the smaller locations that are kind of less known and less investigated tend to give me the crazy stuff compared to the bigger locations.
Yeah, me too. I love that. Anyway, this is fascinating. I just love it. But for anybody, as we're looking at the clock, right, tell people now that they're going to be intrigued with you, as I am. Tell people what you have coming up, where they can find you on social media, websites, and all of that.
Yeah, so Kalani Ghost Hunter is where you can find me on pretty much every social media platform. Usually every month I do a lockdown inside of a location where I stream for 3 to 7 days nonstop. So we have one coming up the 17th through 20th of October, which obviously this is coming after. But in November, I'll be staying at the Randolph County Infirmary for a stretch. So that's coming up. And then next year in January, we're going to be doing some international streams from some places in Europe. So I also post on YouTube every week. So if you don't like live content, you can watch a YouTube video, or if you want both, then you can do both.
That is great. Yeah, Randolph County, that's a spooky one too. Been there a couple of times. I love it. We are going to have to cross paths again and be somewhere at
For
the same.
sure. For sure.
So you guys check him out if you like this ghosty sort of thing, and I know you do. So thank you, Kalani. Go out there, keep getting yourself in trouble. You're going to be fine. I know that.
Well, thank you. I'm a huge fan of yours because I
Oh.
used to love watching Ghost Adventures, and like I've obviously seen you on Ghost Adventures a bunch. Like when I was growing up, that was my show, was Ghost Adventures.
Okay, one more thing. Tomorrow is Halloween. The veil is thin. Do you have any specific plans for Halloween itself?
Yeah, so Halloween, I am going to the Saratoga County Homestead in Saratoga, New York, and we're going to do a subathon. So I'll be live as long as the people keep me live inside of the Saratoga County Homestead. So that place is spooky already, and then you've got people breaking in all the time. So it's going to be an interesting Halloween night.
Ooh, yay. Spookiest night of the year. So check it out. Can anybody tune into that, or how do they find that? Or
Yeah, anyone can watch that. It'll be on TikTok Live, but anyone will be able to watch that.
Okay, so happy Halloween, everybody. Doll says bye. And you guys, thank you. Check him out. And thank you for bringing your magic to the witching hour.
Thank you.